Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to see your smiling faces here tonight. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's public school board meeting of the Langley School District. And for Tuesday, June 21, 2022. And I've got a few things I want to read here today, quite a few things actually. Tonight, the audio visual recording webcasting of our regular board meeting. Those in attendance were informed that as per policy number 7, regular and special meetings of the board may be streamed, live, archived, and accessed online. The board reserves, as its sole discretion, via motion at any meeting, the right to not stream live or archive a meeting or a portion of a meeting. Further, the board reserves the right to edit any recorded portion of the meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order tonight at 7 p.m. And we're going to begin the meeting with just recognizing that we are located on the ancestral. I'd like to acknowledge that the Langley School District is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Matsqui, Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. We gather here tonight in understanding of the importance of Ayastol, Skekayos, working together, and Natsamat, Latsamat, uniting ourselves with one mind, one heart, to ensure that we support and inspire all learners to reach their full potential. I'd now like to welcome everyone, and specifically those that are in attendance tonight. From our partner groups, we have a number of people here I'd like to recognize. Jennifer Johnson from CUPE has said that she isn't able to attend, she's under regress, but Kim Anderson, the LPVPA Vice President, Jeremy Linden, the LPVPA President, and also in our attendance tonight, we have the LTA Vice President, Ellen Barnowski, and also along with her tonight, we have Janine Orlando, also a Vice President, I understand, and Tanya Kerr, the LTA President. And tonight we also have from CUPE 1851, the Vice President, Terry Schaefer, along with the President, sorry, nice to see you guys here, thank you. Our guest tonight also, we have Mike Pugh, he's our District Principal with Aboriginal Education. From our staff that are present tonight, we've got Dale Vo. Dale is the IT Manager, Infrastructure and Security. Vincent Montefrio, the Technical Support Specialist 2. Paul Babel, Technical Support Specialist 2. Judy Swanson, Executive Assistant. Joanne Abshar is our Communications Manager. Lisa Lanchbury, our Assistant Superintendent. Marcelo Moino, our Assistant Superintendent. And Shin Chan, Assistant Secretary Treasurer, and Barry Bunyan, the Assistant Superintendent. Tonight also is Woody Bradford, our Deputy Superintendent. And tonight on my left, we have Brian Izelli, and he's our Secretary Treasurer, and our Superintendent Mel Gill is here as well. On the trustees side, I'd like to recognize that we have a number of trustees here tonight, and importantly, and imagine that. Charlie Fox, Marnie Wilson is the Vice Chair, and then Tony Ward, Suzanne Perot sends her regrets, and Shelly Colbert is with us, and also David Todd, and I am the board chair. My name is Rod Ross, and thank you all for coming. And I might have missed something. Oh my goodness, Alicia Rempel. It wasn't on here. My apologies. Good to see you. Thank you. Alicia Rempel is with DPAC as well, DPAC President. All right, thank you. Moving right along. Again, I have a number of special announcements that I'd like to recognize tonight. The National Indigenous History Month and National Indigenous Peoples Day is today. The month of June is recognized in Canada as National Indigenous History Month. During this month, we take time to listen to, learn about, and honor the stories and contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples across Canada. Today, June 21st, is recognized in Canada as National Indigenous Peoples Day, chosen to align with the summer solstice due to its importance and connection to many Indigenous peoples and communities. National Indigenous Peoples Day is an opportunity for all of us to celebrate the rich history, unique culture, and diverse contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. On behalf of the board, we hope that you will take the opportunity to learn more through story by reading Indigenous literature or watching Indigenous films, by exploring and engaging in virtual events, or just having conversations with others. Please join the board as we learn more together about the history, culture, and perspectives of Indigenous communities across Canada. In addition, on National Indigenous Day, we celebrated the grand opening actually, of Donna Grable Robbins Elementary today. We are honored to witness the ceremony with the students during the day, and then trustees and senior staff returned to the school this afternoon to witness the ceremony led by Kwantlen. It was our pleasure to honor retired teacher and friend and Kwantlen family teacher Donna Gabriel Robbins today. Another announcement, Pride Month. The board is sharing that the district will be celebrating Pride Month during the month of June. Everyone is together again as we are now able to gather and celebrate the freedom to be ourselves and show off our colors. Throughout this month and throughout the district, staff and students will be celebrating by having pride parades in their communities, displays in their schools and classrooms, bake sales to raise money for different SLGBTQ+ charities, and having school-led activities such as Pride Month celebratory sessions on various SLGBTQ+ presentations. Pride festivals, parades, and events are celebrations of the progress of LGBTQ+ community have made, but also it's time to recognize how far we still have to go to achieve true equality and inclusion. Another announcement, National Accessibility Week. This year, the theme for National Accessibility Week is Inclusion from the Start, an opportunity to celebrate the valuable contributions and leadership of Canadians with disabilities, to highlight the work of individuals, organizations, and communities who are removing barriers, and thirdly, reflect on our ongoing efforts to become better, more accessible, more disability inclusive Canada. Imagine a Canada where no one is left out, a Canada that does not just accommodate disability, but one that is disability inclusive from the start. That is the Canada we are creating for everyone. The Langley School District is committed to designing educational environments where the gifts of all learners are nurtured. I'd now like to move to the report from in camera, and we'll now have the report from Vice Chair. If you would, please.
Great. At tonight's in camera, we discuss personnel and legal.
Great, and thank you very much. Now I'd like to move on to number 4, which is our consent agenda. Can I get a mover that the Board of Education adopts the consent agenda items as provided? Moved by David Todd, seconded by Charlie Fox. And any comments, questions? None? All those in favor, please. And carries unanimously. Thank you. And now the consideration of tonight's agenda, that the agenda be approved as presented. Can I have a mover, please? Charlie Fox is the mover, seconded by. Thank you, by the Vice Chair, please. Thank you very much. Marnie Wilson, thank you. All those in favor of accepting the agenda? All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously as well. Great, thank you. Now on to number 6, the Superintendent's report. Would you like to take it away? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Ross. It is my pleasure at this point to pass the floor to Deputy Superintendent Woody Bradford, who's going to go over some of the work that we've been doing over the last few months on updating our strategic plan. As trustees will keep in mind that the strategic plan spans over 4 years, and each year you get an update. And this is our opportunity to update trustees on the 4th year of our plan. Just a notice for trustees that we, within the document itself, have got items that have been completed in the last year. In addition to that, some ongoing items and new actions that will help support the goals within the plan itself. Today, we're going to focus on a couple of different places. We're going to focus on the education side, and as well the world of truth and reconciliation, and where, as a district, we are, and we have our guest Mike Pugh will be helping us with that information later on. I'll let Deputy take over.
Mr. Pugh and myself get the joy of presenting to you our strategic plan update. When we get to this time of the year, it's an awesome opportunity to reflect back on the things we'll be doing this year to support our students, our staff, and each of our school communities. So being part of this presentation, both Mr. Pugh and myself hold up the work of so many great people in our district, each and every day doing things to support our students to be successful. So it's an honor to be here tonight to present to all of you around our strategic plan. So for this presentation, it's really about setting the stage. And in Langley, we know that this stage that we set is full of joy and happiness in terms of what we're trying to do for our students. And in any performance that we have in Langley, we know that it's wrapped around the 4 core values that we have: excellence, courage, community, integrity. And we know that the stage of Langley is set in a sense of this performance is not a destination. This performance is a journey. And it's a journey that we're on, that we want to engage people. And we want to engage people through the heart and the mind. If you've ever gone to a performance, you know that the emotional connection you have to the presentation that's in front of you draws you into that. And that's what we do through our strategic plan. It guides us through our performance to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can for students to be successful. And so what sits on this stage in Langley? What are the things that really showcase the work we do in each of our performances? Well, it starts center stage with our framework for enhancing student learning. This is what is on performance each and every day within our district. It houses our vision and our mission, our core values. And this is the work that we do collectively together to reflect on. And it's the performance that's always going. And it's center stage because that's what we want to make sure that we keep our eyes on in terms of what we're doing to be successful. And behind that, but right beside it, is Ensoling Our Schools. And our Ensoling Our Schools is really the part of the performance that connects the mind and the heart to the work that we're doing. So the framework is the work that we're doing to drive our vision and mission, and Ensoling Our Schools is walking alongside our vision and mission to engage both the heart and the mind in the performance that we're having through our strategic plan. And you know that the Ensoling Our Schools is built on 3 blocks. And the heart, the social emotional learning, is what we build everything from. So when you think about a performance, you think about those emotional pieces throughout a performance. The social emotional block is the one that engages and draws people in. And the systems and structures and instructional practice is what actually stimulates the mind as you go through the performance. So it's the things that are happening on stage that you're reflecting on and bettering yourself in terms of what you believe is happening on stage and the performance that's going on. So in combination for our framework for enhancing student learning and Ensoling Our Schools, we have a model that is providing excellence in each one of our classrooms and each one of our schools through the work we're doing as professionals. And then behind the curtain, what's going on behind the scenes is the building of capacity for each of the individuals within our school district. Through the lens of student development of intellectual, human, social, and careers. Those are the 3 pillars that we use to really stimulate the mind in terms of what we're doing. So as the performance is happening out front with our framework and our Ensoling Our Schools model, behind the scenes, we're developing the skills we need as professionals to be successful so we can actually act when we get on stage to be successful. And it's built on a cycle. It's built on a cycle of improvement. It's built on structures that house the information that showcase the strengths we have in our schools. And it also provides us professional practice in terms of what's best practice for our students to be successful within each performance. So as I said, if we start with the heart, that's the key centerpiece, that social emotional learning block, because that's what keeps you in your seat. That's what really draws you into our performance. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Pugh, our District Principal of Aboriginal Services, to engage us in the heart with the journey that we are on through truth and reconciliation.
Hi, Deputy Superintendent Bradford. I kept hearing Mr. Pugh and I kept looking for my dad though. Asiem, Inasia, Inasialawa, Itzapuelio, at the mic, Tanitsanak Langley, Iatanatamo, Matquiath, Skatiath, Squantlanath, a Semiamoth Masteo, Helix Tilashwello and Quitsneeds Quitsnala Tanaweo. For me, this year, personally, has been growth about learning the language and sitting with and continuing to use that and to put that out and to share the language with others. And so what I said was, welcome, respected ones, elders, friends, family. How are you doing this evening? It's good to see you all. We are here on the land. I'm Mike. I'm from Langley, and we are on the land of the Matsqui, Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo people. And I always go back to the last phrase about Hiluk Tilashwello and Quitsneeds Quitsnala Tanaweo. And it just really it has no translation. And when I sat and talked with Sesma a lot about that, and when you learn more from those who speak the language, they talk about just that incredibly good feeling. And it is that incredibly good feeling to see everybody here and to know that all of us are working together to do incredible work for students. And that's what it's about. As we talked earlier, I was at Donna Gabriel Robbins as well. And I reflect on what she stood for and the work she did in this district and the beacon of light that she was to lead us on this journey. She was that voice that gave us the pathway and that walked beside us and started us, really led us towards that journey of truth and reconciliation. But it was also then the work of Cecilia Ricci, Luke Danduran, and Josette Danduran, who went to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and came back and shared with us as a district the work that needed to be done and the commitment we made to truth and reconciliation. And at that time, we made a motion from the board about a truth and reconciliation update. And so this is where we work it in, but I would encourage the board to understand that at the time and where we were, it was about doing acknowledgements. It was about having assemblies. It was about an event. And I will tell you that where we are at now as district, it is not about an event. It is about the work we do on a daily basis that is really the work of truth and reconciliation. Those assemblies, the events, the recognition of the days, those are all important, incredibly important events. But that is not just alone the work of truth and reconciliation. And so as we look at Unsouling Our Schools, this was really the next step for us. We looked to Jennifer Cates, who wrote the book Unsouling Our Schools, and she led us on the initial journey. And over these past 2 years, she walked us through the social and emotional learning, the instructional practice, the systems and structures. And then this year, we had the incredible honor of Kevin Lamoureux coming to share with the district and working us through as a co-author of the book from his side. And what we really know is that the work of truth and reconciliation of the Aboriginal program of all of us is so vitally important in that first block of social and emotional learning. It's about belonging. And I could sit here and I could tell you all about what Kevin had to say, or I could let you listen to him.
The ultimate goal of Unsouling Our Schools, the ultimate goal of that book that Jennifer wrote that I have a small part of, I can summarize it for you like this. The same way I've done in the past, I'll do it again. The whole purpose of that book is to create the kind of school environment where kids can come into that building and go and know that they're safe. To know that this is a place of safety and a place of belonging. That where schools in British Columbia were used as weapons against kids, our schools can be places of healing. Places where our children know to hold their head up high with pride and dignity. Places where our children know that they are loved unconditionally. As Yuri Brofenberger has said, to love unconditional our children. And to look in a mirror and to be able to love who they see and what they see. And to be proud of who they come from. And you'll notice I didn't say Indigenous kids, I said all of our kids. Because if I understand the teachings of the survivors, those that gave us this gift of reconciliation, we're only doing reconciliation the right way when all of our children are able to experience safety. Okay? When all of our children are able to enjoy a sense of belonging, a sense of safety in our schools.
Who wouldn't want that for their kid? Who wouldn't want that for your students in your class? Who wouldn't want that for our teachers, for our other staff? See, he talks about kids there, but ultimately the work in truth and reconciliation is not just about kids. It's about the staff in this district. It's about all of us together feeling that safety and creating a sense of belonging for one another and working together. That idea of, sorry, wrong side, Yaestal, Skekoyois, working together as one. And so we started upon our journey of reconciliation, as I shared, and we've talked about what it was and what it's morphed into. And I always go back, and I know you've seen this slide before, but I think it would be wrong of me not to share it again, especially given what it says. Care about knowing more, even when you think you've heard it 1,000 times. Listen, hear, learn. There is healing in the telling of our histories. Reconciliation is in the willingness to learn and listen. It's Cupkey, Roseanne Kashmir from Kwantlen, or from Tecumseh Deschwetmuk First Nation, who shared at the 1-year anniversary that ultimately reconciliation is about relationships. Earlier today, when I met with Kwantlen and we were at Donna's, they shared how it's about connection. It's about taking that time to listen and to learn. And there are more ways to learn than just expecting teachers to walk into the building and teach students. We can all learn together. It's David Robertson who shares that the power in reconciliation is that we have to recognize that we have the power to be the authors of reconciliation if you read as much as you can, listen as much as you can, learn as much as you can, and then take meaningful, informed action. We talk about it being a journey and a place to travel when we go to Justice Murray Sinclair, who led the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, who said the road we travel is equal in importance to the destination we seek. There are no shortcuts. When it comes to truth and reconciliation, we are forced to go the distance together. And so if we want an image of truth and reconciliation, I look at this. It is not a straight path. It is not a path without peril. I'm not sure how far down it is on that one side. And I don't see the end. Right? We don't see the end of the journey. That end is not coming anytime soon. But it is a journey that we can travel together. It is a journey in relationship that we can do together. And we've already seen it this year in the work that's done on a regular basis. The relationship, I think of finance coming to Yayastal, asking for guidance and for suggestions around the board or the budget surveys. The work we've done bringing admin procedures into groups to have those conversations with Yayastal. The work of competency-based IEPs from Learning Support Services. The work of 2S LGBTQ plus committees who sought guidance around what is the correct order and who should be honored in what order. And there is meaning as to why it is 2S LGBTQ. In our district, we believe that we need to honor the two-spirited individuals first, as they are the original people of this land and this territory. That is all work that was done by others in the district, not the Aboriginal program, not the Indigenous people in the community who needed to lead it. We have on loan to us, and I do say on loan, I want it on the record, it's on loan, the house post, the protector of all children, to remind us of the work. That was done in a good way, in consultation, in relationship between so many people within the district. So it is continually these maps that provide us the way forward. It is our vision and our mission that drive the strategic plan, that drive the FESL, along with the enhancement agreement. When I've talked with you before, we've talked about the enhancement agreement and the goals. The second one of which, the biggest part, is to create a sense of belonging for all. And with that, we can go to Brene Brown from Dare to Lead, where she says, What she knows from the research is that we should never underestimate the benefit to a child of having a place to belong, even just one where they can take their armor off. It can and often does change the trajectory of their life. And that to me sounds an awful lot like what Kevin shared. We are only doing reconciliation the right way when all of our children are able to experience safety and enjoy a sense of belonging. And that's the heart. That's not Samat. That's all of us working together to come to one heart, one mind. Not Shwali, one spirit. Around the work of social and emotional learning. And so now that we've spoken to the heart, we still need to speak to the head. Because we need both. You can't have one heart, one mind if we only talk to the heart. And so I'll turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Bradford. We'll talk about the mission to the heart.
With that. So creating a sense of belonging, ensuring we know the story of each one of our students in our schools. As you look between the lines in our strategic plan, that's really the pulse of what we're trying to do within our schools. As Kevin said, the opportunity to come into a building and feel like you have that sense of belonging, that sense of safety. When people know your story, people can create opportunities for you that are going to showcase your strengths and gifts. So where do our strengths and gifts come from? We have to provide intellectual opportunities for those strengths and gifts to shine, so they can see the connection between the heart and the mind. And they can know that it's a journey, it's not a destination. 5 years, 6 years, we talk about those numbers. Sometimes for people, it's 20 years. But one thing for sure, this district is not going to just abandon you. This district is going to walk alongside you. We are going to create pathways for the heart and the mind for you to be successful. That's the goal of the strategic plan. So how do we do this, and how do we continue to evolve as a district and really point towards our core values? We understand that we cannot do this alone. We have to do this together. We have to model this throughout our district in terms of what we do between our departments. We have to have collaborative conversations. And you look at this picture and you think to yourself, well, this is the educational side of the work that we do. Our Aboriginal Support Services Department, fantastic. Instructional Services, amazing. Learning Support Services, wonderful group of people collaborating together, these three departments. That's the goal. That's our next step. Our next step is to continue to push the limits in terms of what we do collectively together, because we know every student, just as Kevin said, all students in our schools rely on us. It can't be done in isolation. What you don't see in this picture is you don't see the wraparound in terms of what's going on outside of these three departments. In our strategic plan, you'll notice that this can't happen in isolation. It has to happen through finance and facilities. It has to happen through human resources. We have to build the relationships with our stakeholders and our rights holders to be able to do this work together. Tonight, this presentation is a representation of all the groups on my left, the work we do collaboratively together as a team. The work we do through human resources have been led over the last few years by our Assistant Superintendent, Barry Bunyan. I want to pause for a moment in the performance. This is a commercial break. Mr. Bunyan is a valuable member of our team. He has upheld the core values of our district through the lens of human resources, and on August 1st, he will retire. This is his curtain call. And without his leadership, not just in human resources, but his time in ISP, his time at the school level, Walnut Grove, West Langley, North Otter, building principal, before that, many other districts and many other experiences. You think about the heart and the mind, you think about Mr. Bunyan in terms of the work he's done for us. I want to acknowledge tonight that this strategic plan is upheld by every department, and every department needs a leader. And we've had an exceptional leader in our human resources department. And for that, Mr. Bunyan, a round of applause for you. as we look at the work we do collaboratively together, we look through the 3 pillars of intellectual, human, social, and careers. These are the 3 drivers for the intellectual work that we do. You look at the face of that student, you think to yourselves, what do we need to do to engage our students to be successful? First, as Mr. Pugh said, it's about engaging that heart. It's about that sense of belonging. It's about seeing yourself in the curriculum. It's about having access to the curriculum at all times. In our district, we have systems and structures. So you think of the 3-block model in Ensoling our schools, we have systems and structures that are supporting this work. We have structures like our anchor documents, literacy plans, numeracy plans, our teaching and learning framework. These are all interwoven with what we do in our classroom around best practice. So thankful for the work we're doing with the LTA right now around teacher growth plans. It's an opportunity for us to collaborate together to really look at what we're doing in our classroom and focus on our strengths, not recreate the wheel, showcase on the strengths, look at the gifts and move forward together. And then as a whole system within the school, what do we provide so that we work together? We look through the lens of RTI or MTSS, those tiers of support that we can provide that a single teacher alone cannot do. Our support staff, a critical group of people to help us do this work, essential for us to be successful. The universal design for learning. We have to put in structures so that our teachers and our support staff have time to collaborate and work together to design learning for all students. 22 students in a class, 30 students in a class. How do I design learning for all those students to be successful? We need to dig into those conversations and we need to have the courage to say, I don't know how to meet all their needs and I need support. And as a district, we need to be able to respond to that support. And that's what we're doing, and we'll continue to do it. Are we going to be perfect every time? No, we'll make mistakes, but we're not going to do it alone. We'll do it together. Other pieces of the intellectual model that we're aligning with, obviously the reporting order from the ministry just came out. We're in line with that. We have an effective assessment practice that's been driven through our instructional services department, our learning support services that our teachers are using in our classrooms each day to align assessment within our buildings. We have professional development happening, not just in person through Pro-Ds like Odyssey. We now have it online so students or teachers can respond, support staff can respond to online learning. And then we capture the journey through platforms like My Blueprint. Again, going back to the journey that it's not just a 1-year journey for our students, it's a K-12 journey that we go through. And then we get to empower our students with their voice in terms of their learning. Our student inclusive conferences, 8 more elementary schools will come on board next year for student inclusive conferences. This is an exciting time in our district to hear the voice of students, to showcase their goals that they have for themselves, to work alongside their teachers and their support staff and their parents, to really showcase their gifts and work at things that they know that they need to improve on, but they know that they're going to get support to be successful. I want to show you, and I showed the board some examples last time we did this through the educational board meeting that we had. I showcased the universal design for learning that was happening at Richard Bullput through Kim Klein, the vice principal there, showcasing the small group instruction that's going on at Richard Bullput. We also showcased the skill of the system of RTI through James Kennedy, but I also wanted to showcase another school for you that gives you another lens on the work that's going on through systems and structures and the instructional frame that's going to be successful. And this is the work that is going on at Wicks Brown.
We had our collaboration groups come across some information about how to improve practice in terms of phenomic awareness. So we found a common assessment and we gave it to all the kids and identified areas where they were lacking in the necessary skills. And then we took kids from 3 different classes and grouped them based on their need to build those skills, and then designed explicit lessons to address that need. And we did this for 6 weeks, and teachers had kids moving from room to room in order to accommodate that teaching style with the explicit instruction. The biggest impact, because you always have a group of kids who get stuck, who for whatever reason there's some sort of barrier, you don't know what's going on, and they don't make progress sometimes for years. And we had that group, but they made progress. Something clicked and they hadn't grown or made any progress all year, and then all of a sudden they just shot up. Of course, there were other students that didn't have that same experience, but looking back, I noticed that their absenteeism was off the scale, like between 40 and 50 days absent. So I would say, I can say for certain that the kids that, for whatever reason, would not have made progress, did make progress. And I believe it's because we were able to identify that specific skill and then design the necessary lesson.
The beautiful thing about the way that RTI is structured, you're meeting every student where they're at, and you're trying to build from there up. So you're not just catering to the ones that are a little bit behind or the ones that are at grade level, but you're also pushing the ones that need a little bit of push further, and you're extending their learning. So in my group, I saw students grow. They were all basically meeting in my group, and I was able to push some of them further into already doing grade 1 or grade 2 work. And the kids were engaged the entire time and wanting to learn more.
It's like, as a teacher, you want to be able to reach all your students, and you just aren't able to always get to them. But this was a way that we could take those children that were still working on those same skills all together, and they then thrived in that environment because they were able to stretch their thinking. They were able to have their peers who were on that same skill, so then they felt the confidence was coming through. They were supporting each other, and they look forward to it every single day. Like, when are we doing our literacy blitz, Miss Baboudi? When is it? And they all came back with a smile on their face, and they knew that we all were on track to do this. Like, we were excited. It was something, it was a fun part of our day, and we loved literacy, and I think that shone through. And
one thing that you could sense in that whole cohort was a joy for reading and literacy. The kids had enthusiasm, they were readily engaged, they were confident. It was a combination of being able to mix with other students and having students along that same line, like having that same struggle and being able to learn together. It was phenomenal. We also had an after-school literacy program we were running at the same time, and kids were like, is it reading club day? Is it reading club day? Like, there was just a joy for literacy.
So the success comes with the intellectual development when you reach the goal of having your students come back to say that this is fun, this is engaging, I have confidence in my literacy skills, my numeracy skills. I want to pick that book up and I want to read it. I want to go to the math center because I have the skills that I know that I'm going to be successful with. Wicks Brown, a perfect example of the collaboration that's going on there. 6-week cycle that they went through and had dramatic impacts in terms of student success. And they did it together, they did it collaboratively, and it's acknowledgement of the great work that's going on in that school and many of the schools around our district around that philosophy of working together to build success. So if you turn the page and we go to the human social development of what we're doing within our strategic plan, there are 3 lenses or 2 lenses I want to specifically speak to within our strategic plan that I think are, again, critical for us to look through for our students to have that sense of belonging, to be able to engage. But really on the other side of that is giving our staff the skills that they need to be successful when those stories come through the door. And the lens that we now need to make sure that we are aware of is the trauma-informed practice that we are researching and partnership with, again, our stakeholders working together to really ensure that we're drilling this down in terms of what this looks like in our schools. So when we put new structures or new systems in our schools, we have to look through that trauma-informed lens. We have to work alongside the research that's out there to set the conditions up for success. And this is something that we have to, again, work with our staffs to be able to do. It's not something that you can just all of a sudden pick up by yourself and do. It's got to be done collectively. So as a district, we've made a commitment to this. Things that you will see that will change within our schools through a lens of the peaceful schools. For example, things like predictable routines, emotional literacy, attuned relationships, calming activities, empowerment, those words that resonate with you right now. That's when you know that you have an understanding of how we set the conditions up in our classrooms, in our school, for students to be successful. The training that we will drill down next year through the CARO training that has come through our instructional services, learning support services, our Aboriginal support services, this is the work we need to do next year. Training our complex resource teams, Looking through the lens of our middle schools, doing it on September 23rd, looking at 8 specific elementary schools that we're going to train, and continue to build capacity across the whole district through an informed lens, through a trauma-informed lens, understanding the why behind it, and then giving our staff the skills to be able to manage the work they need to do in our schools every day, so our students and staff are supported. Bacal training, in terms of what we've done, this has been a journey that we've been on for the last couple of years. You can probably all recall the uncomfortable feeling our superintendent at the time, Mr. Gord Stewart, had in engaging in this conversation. It made all of us uncomfortable, and we need to live in this uncomfort. We need to live with the fact that we have to do a better job within our schools of developing a vision and action plan around anti-racism. That's been carried on by our superintendent, Gil, around just making sure that we equip our staffs with the tools they need to be successful. It started really from populating our own personal stories. I remember the stories our administrators just sharing and how emotional those stories were, how dramatic those stories were. And think about our students in our building in terms of what they're experiencing. Those stories then led to staff having conversations about it and walking into staff meetings and feeling the uncomfortableness that was in the room. And we needed to face the uncomfortableness, and we need to continue to face it. The next step will walk alongside the Bacal Consulting Company to develop a vision and an action plan of what it's going to look like across the district. It's work that's not an option. It's something that we need to do, and we have to do as a next step in our district. As we shift from the human social development, we look at the career development, and this is an exciting opportunity when you think about innovation in our district. We currently have 7 train and trades programs running in our schools that are phenomenal. The shift, the learning that came out of COVID, and again, thanks to our partner groups, we went through a transition of going to semester with all our secondary schools. What did that do? It opened a huge door for many of our students to walk into train and trades and be part of those programs that they'd never been able to be before. Massive numbers of enrollment now happening through train and trades. And then pushing back down through our schools into our middle schools and our elementary schools around the innovation side of entrepreneurship. We were at Yorkston a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking with Mr. Kozovic about it, and just the innovation that's happening in our middle schools with our students and our K-7 schools around the entrepreneurship, just the ability for students to showcase their hands-on learning that happens with them, and then be able to showcase that in products they're making, and then be able to go through a process of design is amazing. And that's the work we're doing. In our elementary schools, the need for us to get outside and explore the outside and do things that we know are in our local environment for our students to be successful, to grab a hold of those moments and know that this is an experience that will last a long time because it is an emotional connection to the land and the territories that we reside on. With this, I'm going to leave you with one last video. And as Mr. Pugh talked about, and I've talked about, and our superintendent talked about it, this is not a destination. Our strategic plan is set up because it's a journey. And the journey has emotion in every single story that we see walk across the stage. And as I said earlier, sometimes it happens in 5 years, sometimes it happens in 6 years. This is a story of a valedictorian at LEC that Langley walked alongside and wrapped around her to make sure that she had every opportunity to be successful. And it's a story I think all of us can make the emotional and intellectual connection to.
Here to introduce this year's adult valedictorian, Annie Smith. Congratulations, Annie.
Okay, I'm not good at saying speeches in front of everybody, so bear with me. Welcome, family, friends, and fellow graduates of year 2000. Hold on. Wait, that was my original grad speech from the year that I was supposed to graduate. Flash forward 21 years, and here I am. Whether the wait has been a year, 5 years, 10 years, or in my case, 21 years, look at all we have been through to get here. The challenges of life, not to mention the unique challenges of the pandemic. My graduation story was supposed to start in 2000. It was such a big deal for me to become a Millennium grad. Even though I participated in my prom and grad photos, I never got the opportunity to walk down the stage and receive my diploma. In December of 1998, I was in a bad car accident and spent my grade 10 year recovering in bed, followed by a gradual entry into high school the following year. While I was watching my classmates from my bedroom window, carrying on a normal teenage life, I was focusing on recovering from my injuries and learning to walk. But grateful to be alive. By my grade 12 year, there was so much to catch up on to get that diploma, and I felt like a mountain that was too high to climb at the time. And for those of you who may not remember, back in 2000, zoo meant going fast. Completing high school from home was not an easy option. So life went on. I felt the need to prove myself and push myself to succeed in life. Getting a new job, buying a house at a young age, showing my independence by moving to a new province, moving back to my hometown, meeting my husband, and starting a family. Finishing school didn't seem important at the time, and the mountains still seemed so steep. As if 2020 wasn't a challenging enough year, one fall morning I woke up and felt ready to tackle that mountain. If I could find toilet paper during a pandemic, then I could do anything. First step, I called Langley Education Center and made the appointment. A few days later, I sat down with George and learned that I only needed 2 courses. He made it sound so easy. It was right within my grasp. I remember sitting in my car with a wave of emotions, fear to go back to school, excitement that I could graduate after all these years, and hope for the future. I'm the type of person who puts others' needs before my own. Upon signing that registration form, I felt it was my time. A year later, and here I am. So for me, this diploma means more to me than just a piece of paper. After my accident, I was told that I may never walk, and I did. I was told that I may not be able to have kids, and I did. I was told that my accident and recovery may hold me back from completing high school. My high school diploma was the last thing this accident had taken from me, and now I have it. Sorry. I'm fortunate to have many people rooting for me, and I couldn't have done this without the support of my family and friends. And I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. One of the people who never got to be a part of my final graduation journey is my mom, who passed away last spring. When preparing for her funeral, I found a note from her in an old agenda from 2001, and it said, "Please graduate from grade 12. Well, Mom, I did it. I'm honored to be this year's valedictorian. Prior to this year, I'm pretty sure that the only A I ever saw was in my first name. So to graduate and be chosen to be valedictorian is beyond my wildest dreams and truly an honor. On behalf of the grad students of 2021, I would like to thank all of our families and friends who have supported us along this journey. I feel that I am speaking for all of us when I say thank you to all of the teachers and staff at Langley Education Center, and for all of you for your tremendous support, care, and dedications to their students. They've helped not only me, but many of us achieve our goals. Congratulations, we did it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Q. Thank you, Mr. Bradford. I think that last video speaks volumes for the work that we do in Langley around ensuring that we do everything we can to ensure the success of our students, no matter what the age, and really believing in ensuring we have interventions for our students. And in the end, hearing stories like this really, again, warm my heart, and know that we have staff out there that care about the individual stories and pushing each of our students to success. And that doesn't happen just alone. It happens with a team, and I'd be remiss if I didn't comment as well about Assistant Superintendent Barry Bunyan as well at this time, just quickly. Barry and I go back years. When I first got into teaching in my first school, Barry was a teacher there and welcomed me with open arms. And as a new teacher, I took on a whole bunch. One of the things I took on was coaching the basketball team, and had a lot of passion for basketball, didn't realize how much organizational time was going to be taken. One of the people who stepped up was Barry, who didn't know much about basketball, who had a heck of a lot of organizational skills, and walked alongside me for a part of the preseason. He wound up getting a promotion to be an administrator and left me, but I was okay with that because, you know, I really did appreciate all the effort and the work that he did. And I think it just exemplifies what Barry brings to our team. Whenever there's something to be done, he's willing to do it. And best yet, whenever there's things that we need to hear, he's not afraid to tell us. And we need that around the table. We need to be able to hear the opinion around what we're doing well, around the work around human resources and what we still struggle with. And you're never afraid to tell us that. And Barry, we're better for it. And I thank you. I thank you for your contribution to Langley School District and to the students and staff in our district. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the presentation, John. And I know I have a couple of questions from trustees coming up in a moment, but I need to get this motion on the floor first. The strategic plan update. The Board of Education receives the update on the strategic plan for information. Can I get a mover, please? David Todd. And we'll get Shelly Colbert. Thank you. All right. And now I'd like to hear from David Todd, please. You're first, and then Charlie Fox.
Thank you, both of you, and thank you for sharing the stories. To Deputy Superintendent Bradford, I might be paraphrasing Hamlet, but your analogy of theater, the play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the board. I was struck by the slide that talked about creating compassionate, connected communities, and how the very basis of education and the valedictorian speech talked about is the dignity of one. And how do you replicate that? How do you make that happen? And all of us were touched by the story of this individual. You mentioned about Kevin Lamoureux and excellent stuff. And I just, again, the sense of belonging is so fundamental that, and the journey for all will have rewards for all. So together we're better and stronger. We know that. And as we collaborate, we look at various ways. I guess my one question is, if you had to talk about interventions, and it's tough to rank order them, but what would you say the two most critical interventions you can change a child's trajectory? Thank you.
You can help me if you want. I'll give it a shot. So you know what, I actually don't think it's very complicated. I was fortunate enough to sit with 14 of our students from the Youth Engagement Project and got an opportunity to sit with them and get feedback from them and really sit with them and say, if you were to write the strategic plan, what would it look like? And it's very simple. First of all, listen to us. So the first intervention is just listen to us. Second thing is give us voice and choice in terms of what we do. So when you think about intervention, I could throw some EduSpeak at you. I could throw some fancy acronyms at you, but really it just comes down to opening our hearts and listening with our heart, moving away from hearing from our ears and just connecting the mind and heart in every conversation. And then recognizing that the way that we provide an environment for our kids, our students, has to connect them to their learning style in terms of what they need in that moment in time. So sometimes, you know, you start the learning experience with this is what the pathway is going to look like. And then as you enter that pathway, you recognize that there are multiple pathways there because you need to give students voice and choice in what they're doing. And that's not easy, but that's what's in front of us. And that's what we have to do.
Fox, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you to both of you for a presentation. We've seen a lot of each other in the last 24 hours, haven't we, gentlemen? It's been great. Had a wonderful day today, but something that's captured me, and it's been mentioned a couple of times actually today and previously, and that's a partnership. And we talked about community partnerships, but one that particularly interests me because of my past working in the system is the partnership with the LTA in the evolution and defining of teacher growth plans. I've long been of the feeling that our universities don't prepare our students, our teaching graduate students, well enough for the system that they're entering into. And I think the teacher growth plan is a really critical part as they enter the system and as they grow with the system. And I just wanted to ask you, Deputy Superintendent Bradford, where you're at in that journey and how is it going to look in the end in terms of the evolution of this?
So I should probably actually ask Tanya to come up and sit beside me and present this together. Because Tanya and I have been working on this over the last year, and I, you know what, I think the destination is when we come to a place of our teachers having the right conditions for them to connect to the teacher growth plan process. So I'll reference one of our First People's Principles of Learning, patience and time. I don't think this is a sprint. I think we need to go slow, and I know we have to do it well. Our teaching and learning framework is going to be the anchor for us to have these conversations with our teachers, and we're going to invite them in. We're going to invite them into the conversation about who would like to go on the journey with us next year. It will be a pilot next year for any of our teachers that want to work with us and go through the process with us. We will gather feedback from them. The committee will work together to adjust the process to meet the needs of the adult learners in the system. And then the hope obviously would be that through a joint partnership that we are going to have the teacher growth plan roll out across the whole district. And that's the hopes and dreams for it. And I know within that we can't go too quickly. We have to go at the right pace, and we have to inform, we have to gather feedback, we have to revise, we have to reflect. And then when we get to a place of it being a reflection of what we do in Langley, then we'll be able to roll it out. And I feel great about it. It's been a great learning experience to go through with the LTA. It's been a fabulous committee to work alongside, and we've done it together.
Well, I can say I'm excited about it because I think it's the right thing to do. I think it shows a really significant amount of leadership working in the partnership with the committee and with the LTA hand in hand, because I think it's going to make our staff better, our teachers better, our support staff better, learning for students better. And I appreciate that effort, and thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much, Trustee Fox. And now Trustee Maureen Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, there I go. I don't even have to press it anymore. It just comes on. I lost my question there, but I found it. Something in one of the presentations that I saw was the part where they talked about some of the students that face barriers due to absenteeism, and some of the students I heard it was 50 to 60 days. And so I'm just wondering, as a district, what are we doing to try to increase those numbers when the students obviously aren't even in our buildings and can't participate in those pull-out groups? So what are we doing there? Uh-oh.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Bradford. Well, I think it goes back to connection, right? Ultimately, we need to build the relationship. We need to work together as a team. And we've seen incredible growth through COVID of those buildings of teams to be able to do that outreach work. I think this valedictorian at the end highlighted it, to come back and be able to provide that support when they're ready. We have students, you know, I mean, it's everything from tracking the data to know who those students are and to delve into their stories and find out why, to working together as a team, and when they're there, really focusing on the intense supports. I can think of one student I know who has had a tremendous amount of absences, and as we work together as a district, well, there was a tremendous transportation need. Take away the transportation and guess what's happened, right? We've found that support, and then we've been able to build a support as a team. It's not just about, oh, we've taken away the barrier. It's about how as a team do we plan a response beyond that. And so we've seen growth for this child as they've returned and they've been able to work with others and build that piece in. I think it's a continual piece. It's every school has a few students who are in that situation, and it is vitally important that we know who those students are, and that it's not just a school fix-it situation, but that there's support up here from the district to work together as a team to provide those supports and that outreach for those students.
Is there any other questions from trustees at this point? Okay, thank you very much. I've got a mover and a seconder. So I'll call the question then, that the Board of Education receives the update on the strategic plan for information as presented. All those in favor, please. And it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. On to the number 7, the Secretary Treasurer's Report. 7.1, 2022-2023 Annual Budget Bylaw, third and final reading. Would you like to speak to this first? Thank you.
Just a reminder for trustees, at the last board meeting, we had the first and second readings of the 22-23 preliminary budget. Just to have a couple slides just to refresh some memory, and then I'll hand it over to the Chair Ross to hopefully get the third reading on the budget for next year. Just want to remind everyone that the budget that is passed to cover tonight will cover all the funds of the district, the operating, special purpose, capital, and with the bylaw amount up on the screen there for the total budget of just over $294 million, with the bulk of that being in our operating funds, just over $233 million. What we presented the budget for the operating side, which is what we use for the operations on the day-to-day of the district, resulted in a deficit budget of $770,000. And basically, we'll need a motion tonight to restrict accumulated surplus to do a balancing. Districts are allowed to have a deficit budget if there are accumulated surpluses from prior years that can be used to balance the budget, which is the proposal. Here's the proposal from staff. We had set aside $2.5 million to balance future budgets. The proposal is that we would use $770,000 of that tonight to balance the preliminary budget for 22-23. And those are the two motions that are in your package, and I'll hand it back to you, Chair Ross.
That was very quick. I was hoping for a little longer. $294 million budget, almost a third of $1 billion. Anyway, if I could get this onto the floor, a mover and a seconder for the budget, third and final reading. So a mover, please, Charlie Fox, seconded by Tony Ward. Thank you. Okay. Any questions on the budget? Thank you. I have one. Okay, a couple of them. Okay, we'll go Shelly Colbert first. Thank you. Shelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Ross. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer, for your succinct report. Quick question. You know the answer. I'm just wondering if the government has adjusted the budget in any way, or amended it, or given any extra money to account for the hyperinflation that we're seeing across the province with no end in sight, specifically in regards to things like, you know, fuel and gas, things that we need to run our everyday operations that have increased roughly 40% in 4 months. I'm just wondering how that impacted the budget, and if some of the restricted surplus actually had to go towards covering the anticipated deficits from what we'll be facing in the future.
So, Trustee Colbert, there has not been any additional funding from the ministry to cover any inflationary costs. A lot of the costs that are coming up will be amended budget items because we didn't have that information as we were doing the process. We do go through. One thing that we do know, just with the gas rates for our utilities that have been raised starting, I believe, next month. Our energy person estimates it's just over $100,000 that'll add to our budget. I imagine fuel would be another $100,000 to $200,000. I know we looked at custodial supplies; that was about another $100,000. So we've only looked into a few of the larger tickets, and add those up, it's about $400,000 that we'll probably have to be accommodating when we go through our amended budget. And as of this point, and it has been requested. But as of this point, there is no further funding coming from the ministry.
Thank you. And now on to Trustee Fox.
Well, thank you. And my comments dovetail with Trustee Colburn's. I hate the word deficit. I hate to see us have to use surplus to cover the costs of running an education system where we educate as many students, 23,000 students in our system, and we have to go into deficit. There are a lot of concerns. Trustee Colburn touched on a few just in terms of inflation and the cost of just doing business and getting no acknowledgement that these are costs that will affect the quality of education of our students. They have to. They have to affect the quality of the ability. And I look over here at our custodial staff to do the job they have to do to keep our buildings clean, sanitized, etc. So, of course, you support this, but you hope that the message is heard from all partner groups, all districts across the province. And I know of having Trustee Wilson and I met with our Metro colleagues, and they certainly, every one of them has the same issue with this balance, with trying to balance the budget. So anyway, it's a very unfortunate situation we're in. It is the way we're going to do business, I guess, at this point in time, and hopefully the government will take the lead and show us the leadership that we need to actually balance the budget in an opportune way to provide the education for our students.
Thank you, Trustee Fox. And now on to Trustee Wilson.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I just had a quick question before I have a follow-up. What % of our budget goes to just like wages and operations?
On the operations budget, it's just over 90%.
Okay, so I guess my next part isn't really a question, but just a comment. We did put out a budget survey this year, and I really want to thank the public for engaging like so overwhelmingly. I think we had something like 2,000 respondents, and we were blown away with the engagement, the level of engagement. We love hearing from the people in the partner groups, and I know that you might look at it and think a lot of your suggestions weren't implemented, but when you hear that 90% has to go to just our operations that are already in place to pay our employees that are already existing, and most of your suggestions were hiring more employees, when you look at the fact that they aren't funding us for inflation and so many other things that have to now come out of our budget, there is a huge disconnect with the underfunding of education, and it really needs to be addressed at the government level. And so we as trustees will continue to advocate for that, but I do want to thank and recognize all the people that did submit the survey, answer the survey, and take part in that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Marty Wilson. And now David Todd, please.
Thank you. And again, following on, I did want to mention about the survey and public education requires public will and public protection. And in this case, everybody in this room has benefited from public education and will continue in the future. So it's something I don't think we should take for granted. And it's certainly something that needs to be defended no matter what. When we're looking at razor thin balanced budgets, and we haven't even talked about inflationary pressures or any additions. It's interesting times, and I know that right now there's pressure at the provincial and the federal level coming out of the pandemic. But we need, public education needs to be prioritized. And I did have one question for Secretary Treasurer, and that was the 770,000. I'm pretty sure where the answer is. That is not coming from our fund that we keep based on the auditor's report. Is that correct?
Correct. So on the slide, we had set aside 2.5 million to balance future budgets, knowing that we were working towards a targeted balanced budget structure. You'll see at the bottom, there's 4 million that is unrestricted. That is driven by board policy.
Okay.
And that is standing there, remaining untouched as for this year,
Okay.
for next year, sorry.
So then my real question, what's keeping you awake at night looking at this budget?
Let me go.
Well, that's an easy one. The growth in this district. We had record growth last year. We're seeing this year large growth as well. It'll probably be the second largest year that we've ever seen. So the concern that I have is a space for students, because we don't have any large building projects approved, which you'll see later in the capital plan submission. And the costs that come with that. Portables, there's going to be a lot of portables coming in the next little while. We have a nice partnership with the township, but it presents problems. We don't own parkland like other districts do to be able to place a lot of portables. So even if portables and buying them wasn't an issue, finding space for them is going to be. So that's what keeps me up at night, is with a grid district that's growing faster probably than anyone in the province right now, where we're going to be putting students in the next couple of years. What that means for families. We already have families at Donna Gabriel across the street that can't go to that school.
And if I could just make a few comments, if there's anyone else that'd like to comment, I'd certainly like to hear from you. It's not like we're irresponsible. This is one of the most responsible districts in the province. And one of my observations, of course, is how much money we bring in for our own, to cover our own budget. And in the district, we bring in roughly for our international students program. Can you just give this give the public what approximately how much do we bring in from our international?
15 million.
15 million comes in. So you can see that we're working hard to solve our own problems. We're not just counting on Victoria. So we can applaud ourselves for that. I guess the question I have for you then is, when do we act? At some point, we're going to have to knock on the door very seriously of the ministry. At what point do we do that? Are we looking at September? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, as staff, we're knocking already. We've had many conversations with ministry staff on the needs. It is well acknowledged and recognized with ministry staff that there's an issue in Langley in space, and they're doing what they can. They came out, what was that, 4 weeks ago, to actually sit down with us and go through our capital plan. That has not happened before in this district. So that was a good sign to me that this is there's a focus there. We spoke with the minister herself last week when she announced the seismic and expansion of Peter Ewart. I know that she's very well aware of it and is also advocating on our behalf as well. So I know we are, and I know trustees have as well when they have had that opportunity as well. But any little bit helps.
Yeah. I always think it's important to get context, and the concern that the Secretary Treasurer shared with us tonight is something that is burgeoning. And one of the concerns that I have as I'm driving around the district, and as I'm sure trustees and you as well, staff and the public. We see all these new buildings that are going up, and 5, 6 stories in the Willoughby area. And how many students do we get from those? Typically from apartment buildings, and what could it like down the road? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, that's another concern. Historically, and we do look at it every year, we have a very low yield of a number of students that come out of condos. It's in the range of 1.5 to 2 per 100 units. There a lot of kids move in with the young families, but they're not there when they hit our schools. The worry that I have is that changes because obviously if you have less than 2 kids per 100 units and that changes substantially, that will drastically impact the numbers that we're seeing in addition to the numbers that we're seeing today. We have talked with township and the city. The city has history on the size and the number of bedrooms, and they're actually seeing a trend of smaller footprints and less number of bedrooms, which makes it hard for families to raise kids in 1 and 2 bedroom condos. I do know township has started doing some 2 and 3 bedrooms, but that's still not the prevalent number of condos that are being built. They're still mainly in the 1 and 2. But I think just what we're seeing in the world today with the prices of real estate and property, that's probably going to change at some point, and people are going to be forced to live in 1 and 2 bedroom to raise their families. And at that point, that'll really provide a lot more pressure on us.
So just to clarify and to sort of give context, what keeps me awake at night is just that. Can you imagine you can't afford a house, can't afford a townhouse? And so the only option you have is a very expensive condo for your family. And if you're going to raise your kids in a condo, 2 kids could be a possibility. And those numbers are, I mean, you have no other option. Where are you going to go? So we're going to see, right now we say 2 kids per 100 units. Well, what if we went to 10 kids per 100 units? What would that do to us? Can you just maybe quickly comment on that? Maybe
Well, that I don't know, but it would obviously, with the number of units that are going up, that are being built up, would put a substantial pressure on the district. And just if I could follow up on the ISP question, Secretary Shin has actually given me, Assistant Secretary Shin Chan has given me the number on the ISP. It's actually 14 million. 14 million.
Any other questions from trustees? Okay, I'm going to read the question I neglected to previously. That the Board of Education directs staff to appropriate $770,673 of internally restricted to balance future budgets to balance the operating fund for 2022/2023. I've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor, please. And it carried unanimously as well. On to the second one. I'll need a mover and a seconder that the school district number 35 Langley annual budget bylaw for fiscal year 2022/2023 in the amount of $294,199,666 be given third reading and passed and adopted on this 21st day of June 2022. I need a mover and a seconder, moved by David Todd, seconded by Charlie Fox. Thank you. Any comments, questions on the budget? I see none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you very much. And it is carried unanimously. On to the trustee election bylaw, and we've got a number of these to go through. So did you want to speak to this first, Secretary Treasurer, before I put it on the floor?
Thank you, Chair Ross. Just wanted to point out a couple things on the bylaw with the election that is coming this fall. We normally send our bylaw for the elections to BCSTA, and they have legal look at it to see if there's any changes that are needed. They recommended 2 minor changes to section 8.2, which is requesting information on fundraising of candidates. And the 2 changes were to be made that the request would be without charge and that the address of significant contributors would be removed from that information. And really that would put us in line with the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act.
Thank you very much for that explanation. So I'd like to get a mover and a seconder, please, that the school district number 35 Langley trustee bylaw, election bylaw number 2022-01 be given first reading. Can I get a mover for the motion? Thank you. So that's Tony Ward and Marnie Wilson. Is there any comments on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And all those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. We get to do, we're fortunate enough to get to do all of these today. So hold your horses. I need to get this on the floor that the school district number 35 Langley trustee bylaw election bylaw number 202-01 be given second reading. I need a mover and a seconder for that. And Charlie Fox, and you guys are busy at that end. David Todd, thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, okay. Seeing none. All those in favor, please. And it's carried unanimously again. Very good. And third one, the Board of Education of School District number 35 Langley approves having all three readings at the trustee election bylaw number 2022-01 at tonight's meeting. I need this to be carried on unanimously, and it's carried unanimously. Oh, I need a mover and seconder for it. What am I doing here? Sorry, slow down. On this side, we've got Marnie Wilson and we have trustee Tony Ward. Thank you. Now I've got a mover and a seconder. I've read it. All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. All right. And in the last reading, the school district number 35 Langley trustee election bylaw number 2022-01 be given third reading, passed and adopted on this 21st day of June 2022. Mover and seconder, please. Charlie Fox, Tony Ward. Thank you very much. Okay, and is there any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Great. Thank you very much. On to 7.3. 5-year capital plan. This is on to you, Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you, Chair Ross. Trustees have already seen this presentation at the Finance Facilities meeting earlier this month, but wanted to share the information with the public so that they're aware of some of the processes here. But I will try to go a little quicker than I did at the Finance Facilities meeting. We're here tonight to look at the capital plan submission. It is a requirement for districts to submit to the ministry, and it allows the ministry to prioritize funds across the province. In the school year 21-22, we are actually submitting the plan for the ministry to evaluate for what they will announce for the 23-24 fiscal period for them. Districts need to have a long-term facilities plan, which this district does. It is about 5 years old, or almost 5 years, and we do a refresh on that, and that is on the list for things to refresh once the next board is elected. And then every board must submit a resolution for the capital plan, which is in your package tonight. Similar to last year, they've now split the process into 2 stages. One being the major capital submission, which is due by June 30th, and then the minor capital, which is due September 30th. So the board will see the minor capital at the September meeting, and the major capital is here tonight. Just so that you understand the programs that are covered underneath both these submissions, when we'll be focusing on the major capital tonight, obviously. The major are the larger ticket items, obviously, like seismic, school enhancement, replacements, building envelope, and then the rural district program, which doesn't apply to us. Minor capital are the smaller projects, being the school enhancement, carbon neutral, buses, and playgrounds. We also have a different approval process for the minor capital. It's basically a one-step process. So once the ministry responds to our capital plan letter, if they tell us to go ahead, then we just would proceed with things like procurement, like things like buses and playgrounds, and any projects under the school enhancement or capital or the carbon program. Last year, they changed the major capital to have a 2- or 3-step process. Currently, we have never gone through the 2-step or through the 3-step. we've gone from stage 1 right to stage 3, which is the project definition report. They have added an intern step, which is a simplified business plan for it, which they call the concept plan. As a district, we are hoping that that's not a process that we will need to do because it will add time to the timeline in getting projects approved and thus built. So we are advocating to the ministry that we would continue to go right to the project definition stage for our projects, especially since the history of this district of on time and on budget projects. Every year, we receive a response from the ministry called the Capital Plan Response Letter, and that comes usually in March. And basically that outlines what has been approved or advanced by the ministry for the district, and it can be various things. You know, you can recommend us to move ahead to buying a site, building business cases, either the concept plan or the project definition report. And like I mentioned, for the smaller projects, proceeding to tender and proceeding to working through those things. The board is also required to sign this capital bylaw for the whole capital plan response letter of what the ministry has approved. There is also a project contribution policy in effect. So basically, ministry expects a contribution from districts on all larger projects, as new schools, expansions of schools, schools placements, and basically they determine what contribution is needed on a case by case by looking at the financials and in discussion with districts. The approval of individual project is not contingent on the district being able to fund any of that. That has no bearing on the actual approval of the process, and is done after the project definition report has been identified and approved and comes at a later stage. So just because a district doesn't have funds, it does not mean that capital projects will not be approved. So on the screen here are two projects that have previously been approved to go to the project definition stage for this district that are still at that stage. The first being the expansion of Langley Secondary School. We are in the process with the ministry and have sent iterations of the project definition report, and are just working to hopefully conclude that and hopefully have that sent off to Treasury Board. Northeast Latimer is one that has been delayed for quite some time, as there was a stream that was determined on the property, and it is stuck with fisheries. We are hoping that we are nearing the end of that process, and then we would obviously have to update the business case because it's now almost 2 years old. And we are, as staff, working to do anything we can to do that prior to resolving with fisheries so that we can move as quickly as possible, because that elementary school is critical to this district. This is the funding and the projects that we are proposing for our submission for the major capital for this capital plan submission. A lot of this is very similar to what was submitted the previous year. The one change, other than dollar amounts obviously, is an addition at Richard Bullpit Elementary School. This is not something that we particularly want to do, because that would make that a very large K-5 elementary school. But with the delay of the Latimer School and the enrollment that we're seeing, we feel that space is desperately needed. There are 6 portables on site for that school starting in September. So the thought was that at some point that the addition could maybe replace those portables, but also give us some more space on the Willoughby slope. And there is the ability to add an addition to Bullpit. The other additions were on there already from the subsequent asks to the ministry on sites. Those are all sites that were asked for in the last capital plan. First priority being the Southwest Latimer site for a future elementary school. And then for our new school builds, our number one ask is the secondary on the site that we just announced in the last couple months. which is a middle secondary site that both schools hopefully will be built at some point. But the first ask is the secondary site, followed by Southwest Latimer building on the site that is our #1 site purchase request. And then we still have 2 seismics that we would like to get done, both at DW Poppy and Brookswood, which are sister schools to Peter Ewart, which was just announced last week for the seismic work that is being done there and the expansion on that school. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Chair Ross.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Before I ask for questions from trustees, I need to get the motion onto the table. So I'd like to get a mover and a seconder that in accordance with provisions under section 142(4) of the School Act, the Board of Education of School District number 35 Langley hereby approves the proposed 5-year capital plan, major capital programs for 2023/2024 as provided in the attached major 5-year capital plan. Can I get a mover for this, please? All right. David Todd and Charlie Fox is the seconder. Thank you. And David Todd, you had a comment, I think, and Mr. Fox, did you want one as well? Yes. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. This is what keeps me up at night. Being a resident of Willoughby, and I'm going to change the narrative a little bit. It's wonderful, Willoughby. It's not a mess. It's not something terrible. I love being a resident up there. What is frustrating is the fact that we don't have schools. And when we do have schools, there's portables, and more portables. Yeah, I'm not sure where we became like Portable City, and I know that there's a whole equality and equity piece. Like, yes, we get new schools, and you know, there's all that happening, but unfortunately, we need, like Northeast Latimer, we need to be open this September, and it's probably at least 2 years still away. 3? Yeah, I just, you know, and so now we're kind of grasping at straws and talking about, not that it's a bad thing, but, you know, an expansion at Richard Bullpit. And this is, I will say without a doubt, this is, you know, there's been politics within the board and everything, but for me, the most frustrating thing being a trustee has been the inability to advocate in the best possible way for schools. And I'm just, it's not happening, and it's frustrating. And I know that we're considered, we're on time, we're on budget and all those things, but we're still behind this. And yeah, we had the greatest amount of growth, and next year we're probably going to have second highest record growth, and we still need those schools. I don't know. Is there any secret?
I have no comment. So, Charlie Fox, do you want to ask your question? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Trustee Todd, because I've been at this job for 16 months, and yeah, this is, can you go back a couple slides? There's some dynamics here which are just mind-boggling. In a district that's growing as much as we're growing, where the needs are as evident as they are, and where we sit. So a couple of things out of this particular slide. First off, I want to acknowledge that our staff, our senior staff, Secretary Treasurer, Assistant Secretary Treasurer, Superintendent, they're working hard on this district's behalf with the township, and now even with the city. You see under additions, Nikomakil Elementary needs an addition. The growth isn't entirely in the township, but I can assure you that our staff are working hand in hand with the staffs at our 2 municipal governments. But There's some other telling information here too. Look at the cost of number one, the new secondary school in Willoughby, 134 million. That's not the land. That's the school. Secretary Treasurer Isley, what did Mountain cost us? Already know.
Just under 60.
Over double. Add the numbers up. You get a half a museum. Add them up. I know it is. You didn't say it first. You get half a museum. So what are the priorities? We've got, in the next 5 years, 4 additions we're requesting, 5 site acquisitions, 5 new schools, plus Northeast Latimer. When I ran for this board 16 months ago, we expected to hear about Northeast Latimer on March the 1st. The by-election was February 27th, by the way. March the 1st. Here we are sitting June the 21st, 1 year later, and it's sitting on the desk, not of the Ministry of Education, not on the Treasury Board, but DFO. You know why? A farmer 80 years ago dug a ditch. Now it's a yellow-coated stream. And if any of you know what yellow-coated streams mean, it's salmon nutrient, and hence it can't be built. So for a year, it sat on a DFO, bureaucrat's desk. It's inexplicable, untenable. 5 site acquisitions. You can notice Latimer, Williams, Brookswood, a couple in Brookswood, another one in Willoughby. And on top of that, to do the seismic at Peter Ewart, we have to find $1 million. If you go back about 4 slides, you saw the budget. Where are we finding $1 million when we got a $700,000 deficit? This is educational finance 101. You try to explain it. You try to explain it to the public. You try to explain it around and rationalize it around this table. I can assure you, the 7 of us wrestle with this. Keep us awake at night. I don't know what these 2 gentlemen do, our Secretary Treasurer and Assistant Secretary Treasurer, but I'm sure on their whiteboard, those numbers change almost daily. And we've got to provide safe and secure buildings, top-notch educational programs to our students. I rest my case. I don't know where we go. I do not know. Someone in a Treasury board who's a non-elected bureaucrat, a group of them, make the decision. I think it's a fairly simple decision. Any of them can drive down number 1 highway, turn right or left, whichever direction, head into Willoughby. And if you can't see with the whites of your eyes what we're experiencing here, it's very unfortunate. We will continue to do the job we have to do. Our staff will continue. They're to be commended. The township, the city staff will continue to do what they can. But the reality is scary and it's unfortunate. But we will continue. We will march on and we will be a voice and we're not going to let it go. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Fox. Any other comments?
I'm sorry, Trustee Colbert, for taking the museum piece out.
That's okay. Don't worry, it will come up again.
The comment I just wanted to ask, or the question I had on this question, is with respect to give the public an idea of how long does it take us to build an elementary school? What's the fastest we've ever built an elementary school? And if today I said you could have this money and start building today, how long would it take you to get that building going? Maybe just give some context to it.
In the past, we've built them in 2 years. I think the quickest one from time we tendered was 8 months, but that was, the other process was done already. The ministry process over the last couple of years has changed. and it has lengthened that process. We'd be hard pressed to, I don't think it's possible for us to make it in 2 years anymore with the ministry process. It's probably 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay, thank you very much. Context with what we're dealing with. Even if we had the announcement, it would still take that long to get it built. It is scary. I think your comment, Trustee Fox, as well said. It is scary. And but we will rise to the occasion. We have great staff here, and if we didn't have great staff, it'd be really scary. So I'm really pleased in that respect that we've got a great team here. All right, I've got to move in our sector for the 5-year capital plan. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please. And it's carried unanimously. Great, thank you. On to number 8. Trustee Marnie Wilson, this is your plan. The handbook committee. So trustee handbook. I'll get a mover and seconder. I'll let you move it if you don't mind. And then I'll get someone else to second it. Who would like to second in this? Charlie Fox. Okay, Marnie Wilson, Charlie Fox. Okay, thank you. That the Board of Education of School District number 35 approved the trustee handbook. Open for questions at this point. Would you like to open up for discussion?
Sure, I'd love to. Okay, so everybody has probably seen it in the package. The trustee handbook is something that I was wanting from the beginning. I just feel like it's important when you come onto a new job to sort of have a guide to know where to find information or have some questions answered. So although, you know, some people might not have thought it was as necessary, I'm happy that everybody, you know, indulged me and staff as well. And it is just a base. So if you're looking at it thinking, you know, maybe some of this stuff was a no-brainer to some people, or some of it, you know, is maybe not as important. It is a base, and we needed something in order to add to. And so now when we start, whoever is elected for the next term can begin to build off of that base and find things, education pieces or things they find crucial, and can add it into that base. But you have to start somewhere, and I'm happy with where it's gotten to. I want to thank the members who were either volunteered or voluntold that joined the committee.
I'm a team player.
And so thank you for indulging, and staff for sitting through as well. And we did it. It's finished now, finished-ish, and it's fluid. So I'm happy, and I hope that you will all support passing this motion.
Version 1. Version 1, okay. Any questions on this at this point? David, Todd, go ahead, please.
Well, I just want to acknowledge that Trustee Wilson is passionate about this, and she's done a phenomenal job. If you ever get an email from Trustee Wilson, it talks about the idea of leaders build other leaders, or something to that effect. And basically, that's what she's all about. She's not concerned about herself. She's actually wanting to democratize this whole process and make people, or trustees, or people that want to take that job at some point in the future, October 15th, to give them a helping hand. So I kudos to you, and I want to acknowledge that you are the brains and the push behind all this. So thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands at this point, I'll call the question on the trustee handbook. All those in favor, please? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And we have no new business at this point, so I would like to move on to trustee comments. But before I do that, I just wanted to make a few comments. We have a long-term employee with us that is now soon to be leaving us, and he needs to be celebrated and recognized in some way. So I just wanted to say a few kind words about this young man and his life with us here. And I just want to say, Barry Bunyan, what a wonderful human you've been. And you've been an encouragement to the whole system. Certainly been an encouragement to me. You've got a big heart, you're a collaborator, and you're willing to have those difficult discussions. And I can't think of a tougher job in human resources. So I just applaud you for that. And you took over for Mal Gill and cleaned up his messes. No, has done a wonderful job. in that role. So I just wanted to say how much I recognize and appreciate you and applaud your future. And I just want to say a couple of things in that it's just the middle of the story. You know, people retire and they sort of think this is the end of their career and this is the end of something. But no, it's just the middle of the story. There's a lot of good things that are going to happen in your life, and I'm confident of that. And who knows, maybe we'll find even a place for you here in some sort of a consulting role or something like that. But I just wanted to say that get your hopes up. Good things are ahead of you. And if you would just come forward at this point, I've got a small gift from the board here for you. Ace. Free tickets to the museum and artifact. Oh yeah. Yeah, you just speed this up, right? Thank you, board. Thank you, everybody. All right, and so it's that time of it's the time of the play where we get to have trustee comments. And so at the end of the school year, I'm sure trustees will have a few comments. So I'd like to start with our newest trustee. That would be Charlie Fox. Go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you, Chair Ross. I think I said a lot today. I want to acknowledge Mr. Bunyan, colleague for many years, and thank you for your work in a district as someone who worked alongside you and educated students alongside you. It was a pleasure, and I wish you well in retirement. And there's always a future wherever you may end up. You could become a trustee. Good luck. Anyway, thank you, Barry. I just have to I acknowledge staff. I acknowledged our secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer and the work they do. The culmination of that work was shown today, and I think Mr. Isley laid it on the line. What keeps you up at night? The people at this table are really passionate about the job they do day to day in the education realm, financial realm, and so on. And it is tough in this day and age when we look at the numbers and we realize, public education is what we invest our life in, and we need it to be successful. Speaking of success, I've done 2 grads and given an address on behalf of the trustees. Fortunately for Superintendent Gill, he was at both grads, heard the same speech twice. I offered to give him a chance to do the second time, but he chose not to. Anyway, both Brookswood and Aldergrove, excellent to see the engagement, the families, the staff, and so on, all involved. It was excellent. Today was a busy day. What a rewarding day at Donna Gabriel Robbins School. We had the official opening this morning and then the naming ceremony this afternoon. Tremendous support and energy in the building. It's full. The building's full. I talked to our secretary treasurer and said, what's it look like for next year? Well, his answer's not in terms of numbers, it's in numbers of portables. I think we're going to need. So we are growing, and you don't have to work very hard to see that. Anyway, summer's upon us. To our partner groups, hope you have a great summer, and to our district staff as well, and to the students and families. Enjoy your summer. Not much time left, but we'll hopefully see you all in September, refreshed and ready to go for a new school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Fox. And now on to Trustee Marty Wilson.
Great. I thought I was going to go later, so. I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Bunyan for your long service. I wish you all the best in your retirement. I want to thank David Todd for those kind words. That was very nice. Thank you so much. I also want to say that unfortunately, Trustee Perot couldn't be with us tonight, but I know she would love to wish everybody a great summer. So just on behalf of her, I want to recognize that it is Pride Month, National Accessibility Week, and today is National Indigenous Peoples Day. So I encourage everyone to embrace and celebrate these important occasions. And the best way to do that is either attend a celebration or take a course, read a book. Really anything that you do to increase your knowledge or awareness is helpful and productive. So I want to say how thankful I am that I also was able to witness today the celebration of Donna Gabriel Robbins. Today, she is an icon, and I'm very proud to be part of a board that chose a strong Indigenous woman as the namesake for one of our schools. So that was amazing. I want to congratulate all of the 2022 graduates. Be proud of all that you've accomplished and celebrate your victory. But please, please, please celebrate safely. This is a hard time of year and we don't want anything bad to happen. So congratulations. And lastly, I want to thank our staff, all of the staff that are here at the board office and that help us get through all the details of the board meetings and everything that you do, your presentations. I know sometimes we don't give you the recognition we should, and just want you to know we're thankful. Also, all the staff that are working in the schools. I know that like you were hanging on like this and slowly each finger has let go and you're literally just one more week. So hang in there, and we totally appreciate everything you do. I know it can get really hard right before summer, so you've almost made it. And very lastly, our partner groups. Your jobs can be so thankless and isolating. And so we just want you to know that we thank you and we see your work. So please know that you're seen and that your work is felt throughout the district. So thank you so much. And to everybody, have a great summer.
Thank you, Marnie Wilson. And now on to, let's do 20 ward, please. Go ahead, 20.
Hello. Much has already been said. I just want to thank staff as well, and our partner groups and the parents out there for another challenging year, although we're coming through it with COVID and everything. And also want to echo what Trustee Wilson said with respect to congratulations to all the grads out there. Just say go ahead and make us proud. And in line with what Charlie Fox said, I had the privilege of being at grad 2022 for LSS, where I graduated many years ago. I know you might suspect that I didn't, but
no, but I heard about it.
You already, yeah, okay, that's written in a book. But it was what a privilege it was to be there. And I'm going to misappropriate a quote from Woody Bradford tonight, without his permission, but just about it being a journey and not a destination. That's what we're on with respect to all our challenges ahead in 2024 with all the phenomenal growth. So 900 students one year, 950, maybe 700 this year, I'm not sure. But it's just, it's not an insurmountable task. And thank God we've got great staff to manage these hurdles, because it's a very significant thing ahead. So anyhow, and thanks for everybody for, again, to staff for a job, a year well done. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. And now on to Shelly Colbert.
Hello, friends. Today is a good day. It's a good day to be a trustee on the Langley Board of Education. Today was my privilege to witness the official opening of Donna Gabriel Robbins Elementary. And later it was my honor to be an invited guest to the special reception for family and friends. I cannot think of a more beautiful and fitting way to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day. Today in Langley, we officially opened a school named after a living person, and not just any kind of living person, but a woman. And wait for it, an Indigenous woman. A wonderful educator, a fighter, a sister, a beloved auntie, a wonderful Indigenous woman. What an amazing moment in our history. In fact, the naming of this school may be the best decision I have ever made as a trustee. It's certainly one that I am immensely proud of having played a part in. It has been an incredibly busy but wonderful few weeks celebrating all that is good in public education. The absolute best parts, the end of the year. I was invited to view a beautiful and touching exhibit brought to us by the Human Dignity Coalition in collaboration with the talented Littles from Blacklock Fine Arts and the Senior Center. I've attended the Aboriginal Achievement Awards, the Athletic and Service Awards, retirement dinners, and last week I had the privilege of speaking at and participating in the Fine Arts graduation ceremony, where among many other outstanding performances, I had the absolute pleasure of hearing Assistant Superintendent Lynchbury's daughter Zoe sing. Her voice is so beautiful. She sounds like an angel. And it actually brought Principal Moores to tears. And later it inspired him to do the worm. Legitimately, the man did the worm on stage. It was incredible. Yeah, good for him. I'm looking forward to speaking at my very last graduation address this Thursday. And I say it's my last because it will be. I didn't expect to get emotional. I want to take a moment and let the public know that I will not be seeking re-election to the board in October. Don't cry, Alicia. Don't. It's good. It has a lot to do with the handbook and Barry leaving and the museum. I can't take it anymore. My plan is and always has been to run for city council, and there will be more at that at a later time. But for now, I want to continue being present where I am and enjoy every last second of what has been the greatest privilege and honor of my life, which has been being a trustee. Part of the motivation for announcing this tonight is to allow ample time for Mal and Brian to plan and prepare my going away celebrations. But more than this, I want to let people in the city that I love know that if you have ever considered running for the board, now is the time. There's an empty seat, and that doesn't happen often. The 2 city seats are immensely important to me, and the city needs and deserves strong and passionate advocates at this table. There will be an empty seat. Someone's going to get it. Someone will be filling my seat, and my greatest hope is that this is a fierce advocate. Finally, congratulations to all the graduates of 2022. Don't do dumb things, like really stupid, dangerous things. Like you'll do dumb things when you celebrate, but don't do dangerous things. To all our students, families, and all district staff, and all our partner groups, it has been quite the year. In fact, it has been quite a few. And I want to thank you all for your hard work and wish you all a very happy and restful break. And to thank you all for being part of what has been the most incredible experience of my entire life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shelly. Now on to David Todd, please.
Let me start by just saying thank you. Thank you for the education endeavor that endures immensely difficult times and keeps ticking. I was going to use the Energizer Bunny in there somewhere because, as mentioned before, we just continue on. And I know it takes a whole village to do this. It really does, because it's not that the people that work in education are nameless, but I don't know each and every one of your names, but I hold you up as the heroes on this night. We've endured, we've continued, and hopefully we come out of this stronger on this night. The first day of summer, the ray of hope. I appreciate each and everybody involved in this excellent endeavor, and I mean it. Assistant Superintendent, well done. Create a positive legacy for the future. You've made a difference in our district. To the grads of 2022, maybe I'll just quote Taylor Swift. Keep dancing in life like you're the class of 22. I too, as well, as Trustee Colbert, and it's a tough act to follow. I've made the deliberate decision. This will be, my last term. There has been no greater honor than to serve Langley. Love Langley. Talk about it all the time. Day life, I work someplace else, but I come home to Langley. And I guess for me, I underestimated how much I would learn as a trustee. I gained a whole new perspective and appreciation of the great people involved. I knew it. I worked in schools, yes. But you need to go out and look in a different way and see it. And I honestly say that I appreciate all the efforts, and I'm proud to be a member of a world-class organization. It's phenomenal. The door is open. I encourage somebody that cares about public education, that wears it as a badge of courage, and they're passionate with that child in the center. As Chief Gabriel says, they're our medicine. They are why we are in this. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Trustee Todd. I just want to acknowledge a number of our trustees. The BC School Trustees Association, which we're a member of, a number of them have been welcomed to some different committees at the provincial level. So I'd first of all like to recognize that Marty Wilson is now going to be working on the working group on childcare with the BC School Trustees Association. And Charlie Fox is going to also sit on the audit and finance committee. So congratulations to you both, and thank you for doing good for Langley and for the province. My comments tonight, as we bring the school year to a close, I encourage everyone to certainly read a good book over the summertime. But more so than anything, I wanted to just challenge my own thinking tonight and some of the words that I said previously. And one of the things I said is that, we're in scary times. And as bleak and as challenging, the budget is, but the budget always has been challenging. It's nothing new. Capital, well, it's always been a challenge, nothing new. Always seen our way through. Years ago, I remember we were sitting here, we're trying to figure out what to do with this middle school thing. We had looked at RE Mountain, and we were sitting in RE Mountain Library when it was still the secondary school, the old one, where Peter Ewart is now. And I remember talking to some folks, and one of the custodians actually spoke up and he says, what you should do is, why don't you make this into a middle school? And why don't you build the high school next door to us here? And you know something? We hadn't thought of that. And so tonight, folks, I have hope for our school district, because it's not just the people at this table and it's not the people at that table over there, but it's the people everywhere, the entire school district that we need to embrace. Every brain in the game, and we will solve these problems. These challenges will not be scary. We will solve these together. And that is the wonderful thing about being a human, in that we always find a way through. And there's always going to be challenges, but we will find our way through. And so that is the great hope that I have, and that I have sitting in this chair, is we have the people here are great. The systems that we have in place are great. Yes, we can get better, but we have great hope for the future. And I look forward to sitting in this chair a year from now and announcing these schools being built. That's my hope. So ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to say thank you, and now on to question period. And so I'll just read out the preamble. A question period is provided at board meetings. The purpose is to ensure that those present in the audience have an opportunity to obtain clarification concerning business conducted during that meeting. Priority will be given to responding to one question per person before considering further questions from any individual. The following will help the public develop questions for question period at board meeting that is in keeping with the goal of a respectful and focused meeting. Questions 1, need to be directed to the chair and not to staff. 2, need to be related directly to the topic on the agenda. 3, need to be succinct, focused, and not a statement. 4, may not be asked that related to personnel or directed at an individual trustee. 5, may not be asked that are related to contract negotiations. And lastly, the questioner shall provide their name so that it can be reflected in the minutes. All of the above are directions provided for in policy number 7, board operations. The chair may answer, may defer to staff, or indicate a question may not be in keeping with the above guidelines. Board appreciates the public's interest and wants to ensure a professional meeting is conducted and question period focused on providing guests with the clarification they seek. Trustees also welcome questions from members of the public apart from question period, and their contact information is available on the school district website. I will now call for questions from the public. If you'd like to, this is your moment. Seeing none, I'll call for adjournment. Who would like to call for it? Tony Ward? Oh, Shelly Colbert first, seconded by David. Oh, David Todd. Thank you very much. There you go. Okay, all those in favor of adjournment? All right, thank you very much. Meeting is, it's carried. Thank you. Have an otherwise wonderful evening, folks. Thank you. 9:06. We did good.